So Lucifer was an ENKI, which was a teenage Anunnaki on Mars. His real name wasn't Lucifer, and he set an uprising because he wanted a wife, just like Marduk had, or was about to have, on Earth. So he wanted to come down, and he said to the others, I'm going, if you don't want to come, I will still go, and I will still take myself a wife. So 200 of the 300 ENKI ended up behind him, saying, okay, yes, we'll come. So they used the ruse of going to the wedding to plan to steal and kidnap human women and have them for themselves. Now, looking at the wings there, just remember that the Anunnaki actually gave wings out as an achievement, and also a eagle helmet. So if you did something fantastic, excellent work, you get actual wings, and I'm guessing they were some sort of wings like this for the depiction, because the helmet was an actual real helmet that went over the head. The ENKI were allowed to actually have wives, so they chose the offspring of the Adam and Eve that was in Mesopotamia type ones, not the ones that were genetically created, in other words, the more superior ones. And as they took their wives, they decided to make settlement on Earth in different locations with these wives. But when news came that there was going to be a flood, the ENKI decided, as well as many of the others, to stay on Earth, because they weren't allowed to take the women back to Nibiru, so they chose to stay on Earth. And there weren't enough spacecraft, so they moved to locations at the top of mountains, etc., ready for the oncoming flood. So what happens then is, I'll tell you in the next video. So it was the time now that the Anunnaki had to leave Earth in their ships. The ones that didn't leave Earth, such as the ENKI with the wives, they went to the tops of mountains, such as Ararat, for example, Mount Ararat. And the tsunami was caused by an ice shelf that the Anunnaki were fully aware was going to happen, and an ice shelf broke off and actually slid into the ocean, massive, which caused a tsunami. That's actually the flood. The tsunami was described in the ancient texts as high as the sky, and it covered everything, covered Africa, covered Iraq, Iran, which is why we can't find, and every time we have to look for stuff, we have to bury, dig in. So the gold mines were totally wiped out, which explains why gold miners today in Africa, South Africa, actually came across, digging through underground, another tunnel, which was already an ancient tunnel. As the tsunami in the biblical times created this huge flood, the Anunnaki were up in their ships looking down, and some of them were weeping, actually, because it was very sad that obviously they'd spent hundreds of thousands of years with humans and they got to like them, and they could see, you know, that the planet was now becoming covered in water because of the, well, as I mentioned in the last video. But Noah was in this sealed tight container. It wasn't really a ship, it was absolutely sealed tight, and it had a little hatch, and along with him was the domesticated animals. Noah's name wasn't Noah, by the way, it was a different name, and he also had his wife and some friends of his, and he also had a ship pilot that ENKI gave him, and that ship pilot also carried a box, and in that box was the essence of animals and plant seeds, etc., just in case they needed to repopulate the planet. So it all makes sense. When the Anunnaki finally landed on what little land there was left after the Great Flood, they assessed the situation. They could see that all their spaceports and buildings are totally submerged now under mud. There was only one landing pad left that wasn't destroyed. And we can see this type of thing that happens. What happens is they have the ancient Anunnaki buildings, and then different civilizations after them build upon them. So, for example, this one here, this supposedly was one of the landing pads, the original landing pads. But as the Anunnaki were no longer there, this is built up using different materials and different building styles, and the same goes for this. This supposedly was also another base, but over time Romans or whoever came along and added extra features to it, so they've used the existing Anunnaki architecture.